This podcast was originally live-streamed on the NonSequitur show on YouTube. New episodes air weekdays, Monday through Friday, at 8 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/NonSequitur show. Make sure you never miss a live stream by visiting www.nonsecshow.com/schedule. For the latest news, polls and updates throughout the day, follow us on Twitter @NonSecShow or Facebook.com/NonSecShow. That's NONSEQ show. If you'd like to get exclusive content, bi-weekly private hangouts with Kyle and Steve, backstage access to chat with guests after shows hosted on your channel and much more, become a Patreon saint of NonSequitur. It ensures we continue to improve our show and brings you into the process at the same time. Visit patreon.com/NonSequitur today while the limited spots are still available.
The following podcast is intended for those who believe bold ideas are righteous, unique perspectives are gospel, and strong opinions are sacred. This is Non-Sequitur. Never follow. And now, here are your hosts, Kyle Curtis and Steve McRae.
Hello, comrades and comradettes. Who's ready to get communist? There you go, Steve.
Is that not a snappy salute after like 30 years? That's still pretty damn good, ain't it?
I don't think communists salute, though.
No. Well, that's a British salute. I'm not going to do the Nazi salute. Somebody's going to take that out of context.
Communist fist bump, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, you're right. I think it's like that, right? Yeah,
right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Screenshot that.
Good morning, everyone. It's against our, or not against, but this is highly unusual for our show. We're usually night owls, but we woke up early, and Steve has had like 3 pots of coffee, so he's good and cracked out. And yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I'm fine.
I see that. You never were fine, Steve. You never were fine.
Oh, maybe I'm fine.
Just a couple quick things before we begin. First, we'll say hello to Frustrated Atheist, SJ, hello. The Christian Apologist, and Master Apologist, I believe, is your moniker, sir. Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it.
Excellent. SJ, how are you? Long time no see.
Hi. Long time no see. Great to be here.
Glad to have you. And the pissed off pig underneath me would be Frustrated Atheist.
That indeed would be me.
That is truly the face of frustration. That's angry bacon. Okay.
The angry.
Right. Guys, just to remind you, if you are a patron of the show, we will be having a private hangout today at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can come by and hang out with us and just talk about whatever, have a good time. We've got a couple of special announcements that we're going to make concerning the rest of this month and next month, and the Golden Nun. So if you have the time and you are a patron, make sure that you come hang out. I'll put the link in the Patreon page as well as the Discord server. So if you are part of Discord, you can head over there and check it there. Tomorrow we will also be back live again at 4 p.m. Eastern for a special presentation, and then again at 8 tomorrow night for the possum situation in New Zealand, which is devastating. So, big weekend with us. I hope you don't get tired of us, because we're going to be here in your face for quite a few hours. And with that, we will go ahead and begin tonight. Look, I'm so used to saying tonight.
Somewhere happen. In the world it actually is.
This morning's debate, in which we will be talking about communism. Does it equate to atheism? And We will actually begin after we let these fine people introduce themselves and who they are and what they do and why they do it, all that good stuff, their channels, social media, all that jazz. And we will start
account numbers, social
with
security, all that.
Sure, if you want to. Why not? Nobody, it'll be fine. Nobody will take it. We'll start ladies first. SJ, why don't you introduce yourself to people who may not know who you are?
Hi, I'm S.J. Thomason. I'm a university professor. I teach business management courses, which include leadership and human resource management, international management, and I like to talk about communism and capitalism quite a bit. So I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. All right, and Master Apologist.
My name is Joshua Brister, and I'm a teacher. I teach world history and United States history. You can find me at Joshua J. Brister on my Patreon account and on Twitter as Master Apologist. I very much thank you. I was under the impression that it was communism, capitalism, atheism, and Christianity. So that's kind of what I was inclined to think was going to be the debate today.
I think it'll probably get there, I'm sure. Frustrated Atheist?
Yeah, I'm Frustrated Atheist. I have a YouTube channel where I do a lot of debunking of complete and utter nonsense. I have two series that I'm going to be starting soon. One is Science for the Newly Deconverted. The other one being a look into the Steven Anderson / Matt Powell cult style of fundamentalists. And you can follow me on Twitter at Frustrated Atheist.
Excellent. Okay. I believe we will start with the team capitalism, I guess. SJ and Master Apologist, whichever one of you two would like to go first. The floor is yours.
I think we should define the term so people know what we're talking about. So when you say capitalism, it's basically talking about private ownership, and communism is the idea of workers. The ideal form of communism basically speaks to workers having the ownership, and so that's the way to distinguish it. But in practice, they tend to differ. So I think it'd probably be great to have Joshua chat about this to start off, since he's a world historian.
Sure.
Well, I first wanted to read to you a quote from Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize laureate in economics. I think it was 1974. He had this whole series in the 70s and 80s called Capitalism and Freedom. Here's his quote: "A society which is socialist cannot also be democratic in the sense of guaranteeing individual freedom." The way that we have individual freedoms and the ability to own private property, these are essential things to the West. This is why by the year 1500, the West was dominating the rest, as in Neil Ferguson's words, one time, or actually he's at Stanford now, he was at Harvard University. He did a YouTube series, and this aired in Britain. It was called The West and the Rest. He made this differentiation why in the year 1322, you had, under the Ming Dynasty in China, you had Chonghe set sail, and by the time he got back to China, this was later on, but by the year 1322, the Ming Dynasty had laid waste to any ships. The Ming Dynasty had not believed in progress and had made by fiat, made by law, that they were supreme and superb. The Western belief in progress, in a progressive evolution of ideas, of cultural evolution, has really made us supreme. And I think it's what a lot of people take for granted. We can't forget where these notions like private property and where they come from.
Okay. Anything you want to add, SJ, before we go to Frustrated?
I think that's good. I wrote, and I told you how I wrote this up, and it's unfortunately you can't really see all that I wrote up, but there's basically when we talk about the far left and the far right, and we look at history, and we look at just how it is, for example, in the United States, people who are on the right basically tend to be Republicans and conservatives, and if you're on the left, you're more Democrat and liberal. And if you go to the far right, you can go to the extreme case, and that would be fascism. And if you go to the far left in the extreme case, that would be communism. Between those areas are dimensions of socialism and that sort of thing. And then we have, this is how it is in theory, and then we have how it is in practice. And how it is in practice tends to be that fascists and communism are closely related. Fascism's example was Nazism, and also Mussolini's way that he carried that out. And communism was exemplified through Stalin and Lenin and Mao Zedong and some others. So we see how it is in theory, basically based on Karl Marx and from the late 1800s, and then we have how it's based in practice, and we can see examples of these governments in those forms. In the United States right now, as you know, we're controlled by Republicans. People tend to be more focused on religion, and it does relate to capitalism and religion. So there is a correlation between the feeling of individual private ownership, capitalism, versus the Democrat side, which is more of a liberal side, and that. So that's where they're distinguished. I just wanted to go over those basics.
Okay. Frustrated?
Well, for starters, I would like to say that capitalism isn't just the private ownership of anything. It is also the fact that it is privately owned companies that are producing capital for economic wise. So that right there, you went off of a very small, tiny thing of capitalism, which is somewhat correct, but it's not the complete scope of capitalism. Other than that, I've got nothing.
Okay.
As far as what's been said.
Well, one thing that I think we're going to talk about a little bit today also relates to the fact that the farther to the right you tend to go, it tends to be more religious. And the farther to the left you go, it tends to be less religious. So that's something we were going to bring up, because in practice, those leaders that I just named also were atheists, and that's where there's somewhat of a correlation.
Which leaders did you bring up?
The debate is.
I'm sorry?
Which leaders did you brought up?
Okay, so I brought up examples with Lenin, Stalin, and Mao Zedong, who was the Chinese leader.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got a whole entire argument about that already. So, okay. Once we get into it, I'll say what my argument for that is.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, well, all these leaders that you brought up, including Mao, were all actually they had created personality cults, and personality cults replace any religion and put the government as the religion. And so therefore the whole entire society itself is no longer exactly atheistic. It's a personality cult. Everyone within this community believes or worships the government itself as the religion and the leader as their god, if you will. Many of these communistic societies back then were all personality cults, including Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, even Hitler, which Hitler wasn't atheistic, but it was still a personality cult regardless. So in retrospect, you can really say that these aren't even atheistic communities, if you will.
How would you answer that, SJ?
Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say it's a personality cult. I can agree with you on the way that they wanted to be worshipped themselves. I mean, that even speaks to the North Korean leader right now, Kim Jong-un. He basically thinks that people should be worshiping him. So, and that's not unlike his grandfather and his father and others before him. So,
well, let's speak to the what the, I guess, the crux of the topic was. And